Good evening. Thank you for joining me this evening in this very important discussion on the Zambian economy. So the focus is to place Zambia's economy within the global context, which is to say that there's an economic global recovery, and then what we're trying to assess is what Zambia can do within this particular schema. So the International Monetary Fund, in its World Economic Outlook update of January 2021, has projected the global economy to grow at 5.5%. Now, this is coming from a 3.5% contraction in 2020, mainly due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, what does this recovery mean for different countries across the world, including Zambia? What we observe, obviously, is from the projections. As economists, what we do is that we make projections, and these projections are based on a host of assumptions. And the two driving assumptions that underpin this forecasted 5.5% global recovery are widespread use of the coronavirus vaccine, as well as aggressive targeted fiscal and monetary policies mounted by developed countries more generally. So how do we interpret this economic recovery, and what does it mean? So the first thing that we observe is that the focus are not homogeneous. What we see is that there's a variegated intensity of recovery across the world, and this is based on structural contradictions of different countries and the efficacy of the policies that are put in place, which will frame how they respond to the rising opportunities and emerging challenges that present themselves as the months or days go by. So for Zambia, this comes at a very important time, because this is a time when the President of the Republic of Zambia, His Excellency, President Edgar Chagwa Lungu, has launched the Economic Recovery Program for 2020-2023, which is optimistic as the vehicle or two through which the Zambia's economy is to rejuvenate itself. It projects 1% to about 3% by 2023 growth of the Zambia's economy. So this is a modest picture in terms of how the Zambian economy is expected to recover. Now, this recovery program obviously is coming from a time when Zambia has been hard hit by COVID-19, with its GDP contracting by up to 5% in 2020, with prices rising over this period of time. And the latest statistics on inflation have shown that prices have gone up to over 21%. So these are annual prices. So from January last year to now, prices have gone up by around 21%. So this is rather devastating, because it does erode purchasing power of different sections of society. So how do we take advantage of the global recovery and ensure that we insulate ourselves from the vagaries of the external sector? Two key points that I want to bring out in this conversation today, as I invite you to come and participate as well, is that there are two pillars that I see would be essential in the short to medium term in terms of underpinning and driving the recovery of the Zambia's economy. The first is focused on agriculture, and secondly is to tie agricultural growth to manufacturing sector. So not only will this be crucial to maximize employment, but it will underpin and drive an integrated structure of production that will insulate the Zambia's economy, that will insulate the Zambian economy from the external sector and shield it from importation of food prices in the event that the kwacha depreciates. So we know the kwacha has depreciated rapidly over the past 1 year, although it has held its ground over the past couple of months. The agricultural sector, unfortunately, in terms of its contribution to Zambia's GDP, has shrunk over the last decade from 9% contribution to GDP to around 3.5% as of 2019. The other thing that has happened during this period of time is obviously the value in terms of agricultural sector itself has come down by around 1%, around 0.9%. So these statistics are readily available in the Economic Recovery Program, and it will be easy for you to see them yourselves. Now, what I point out as what Zambia can do is essentially based upon the assumptions that the World Economic Outlook update gives for the International Monetary Fund, which is widespread use of the coronavirus vaccines as well as targeted monetary and fiscal policies to drive growth. So for Zambia, the focus is on agriculture as well as the manufacturing sector. So for agriculture, the ERP, the Economic Recovery Program, argues that we need to shift resources to smallholder farmers who are the key drivers of growth. So how do we support smallholder farmers in this particular case? Through credit facilities, through mechanization, as well as provision of inputs that will indeed improve their yields. So now, smallholder farmers, as we know, are spread across the country. So what we want to argue is that the government needs to put in place systems and mechanisms through various agencies and agents that can amalgamate and aggregate production and coordination of agricultural produce for smallholder farmers. In terms of the manufacturing sector, we want to say that coronavirus has presented itself an opportunity for Zambian enterprises to emerge and compete with products, say, from South Africa. We know very well that the disruptive effects of COVID-19 saw some shelves having no commodities for a period of time because South Africa had, because of lockdown measures, it closed down its borders. And Zambian enterprises were forced to be innovative during that period of time. So what we want to see is an aggressive policy environment by the government that, first of all, creates space for Zambian entrepreneurs to emerge and supports them through credit, as well as insulates them from aggressive competition that would be disastrous for them. So I just want to end my discussion by pointing out that growth for Zambia would depend upon what happens in the agriculture sector. Number one, the agriculture sector provides a social safety net because it's the largest employer in general for Zambia. At the same time, it provides food security and can develop to the point that we can export and foreign exchange, and therefore support our foreign exchange reserves that have come down to only 2.3 months of import cover. The manufacturing sector as well is crucial in terms of value addition. Manufacturing sector can sometimes also be organized in a way that it provides forward and backward linkages with different sectors of the economy, including mining, for example, as well as the agriculture sector itself through food processing. But then in terms of value addition, it tends to have more skilled workers, and therefore will call upon a range of policies that can support that sort of growth. So I'm going to open up invitation right now. You can call in, and we can have a conversation around the issues I've discussed and what your thoughts are in terms of what the global economic recovery means for Zambia and what Zambia can do. I'd like to ask that we tie this conversation to agriculture in terms of what you think can be done, and also in terms of clarifications, if any, in terms of what we can do for the manufacturing sector. So thank you very much for listening to me. I'm looking forward to a very fruitful discussion with you this evening. So I'll be taking questions right about now. I'm just opening the phone lines and inviting you guys to come forward and share ideas in terms of what we can do for our beloved country. So the phone lines are open. I would encourage you to call, and we can kickstart the conversation more specifically. Yeah, so the other things that we want to think about when we talk about the agriculture sector and manufacturing sector is that there are lessons to be learned across the world. So there's South Korea, for example, through the chaebols in South Korea and their relationship with the state and an aggressive industrial policy that saw the emergence of local capital that enabled the entrepreneurs to underpin and drive industrial capacity. So that's one of the things that I want to try and point out, that there are lessons to be learned across the world. Entrepreneurs don't exist in a vacuum. They have to interact with the state, as well as read the nature of competition that they face, and ensure that they can develop their capacities and skills. So I had a conversation with a Zambian entrepreneur who was telling me that if Zambia could have even up to 10 entrepreneurs with a net worth of around 500 million kwacha, then Zambia would do very fine. So that's around 5 billion kwacha for 10 people. Obviously, there's issues of inequality and so forth. So sorry, I've just missed some calls. I would like to take some calls right now. I've missed some calls right now. Please go ahead and call in. Okay, so as we wait for some calls to come in, we just continue the conversation around the linkages between the agricultural sector. All right, we have a call here. Good evening. Thank you very much for tuning in. Would you like to introduce yourself? Hello? Would you like to introduce yourself? Good evening. Sorry, I can't get anything. Okay, so unfortunately, I couldn't get the caller. So there's more people calling, and I think there's some calls that are being dropped right now. So this is a very interesting conversation around global economic recovery. So what we see is across the world, including Africa, South Africa especially, which has also been hard hit. Hello, welcome to the program. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello?
Yes. Good evening.
Hello?
Yes, please. Yes, please. I can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Okay, so another call just dropped. Sorry about that. It seems we're having a bit of a problem with people trying to call. When you do call, please reduce the volume on your TV set so that there's minimal interference between this conversation and your TV. You can record the program if you like, and listen to yourself afterwards. But I'd like to invite more people to call and have a conversation. Our time is limited, so please, this is a very important discussion around what you think could be done. So Zambia's foreign reserves obviously have dwindled over the past couple of months. I think from a peak of around 4 months of import cover to only 2.3 months of import cover. So this also leaves very limited space for the central bank to intervene in the foreign exchange markets to prop up the kwacha. So what are some of the things that you think can be done in the agricultural sector, in the manufacturing sector, to ensure that we end foreign exchange, insulate the Zambian economy from the vagaries of the external sector, and therefore support the kwacha? Ultimately, the kwacha needs to be supported by an inflow, not just of foreign direct investment, but an inflow of foreign exchange. Well, foreign direct investment does come with that. So please reduce your volume on your TV set or switch off your TV before making your contribution. The program is live on our Facebook page, which is Ask Muvi. So don't forget to switch off your TV if you're calling from home. Reduce your volume. The program is also live on our the Facebook page, Ask Muvi. So looking forward to this conversation. So like I was pointing out, so the central bank can have limited capacity to be able to intervene if it doesn't have adequate foreign exchange. And that is why we are pointing out that there's need for productive activities, both in manufacturing and agriculture, that can be export-based in order to attract foreign exchange and to diversify the Zambian economy and to make it stronger and more competitive. All right, so I don't have anyone calling now. All I can see is we have a couple of missed calls right now. Please keep trying to call. I think there are so many people trying to call, because we have so many missed calls here. So just keep trying to call. Remember to reduce your volume or turn off your TV set completely. Or indeed view us on Facebook page on Ask Muvi. You're welcome into having a discussion around this very important conversation. So one of the other issues that's of necessity, in this conversation around what can be done is to also understand what we economists. Hello?
Hello.
Good evening.
Thank you. Andrew is calling from IB.
Is that Andrew?
Yes.
Yes, Andrew. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So my contribution there would be, say, I think the toughest challenge that most entrepreneurs are facing should be the issue of access to finance. So, looking at the entire situation where cash is a bit tight, it's a bit challenging for entrepreneurs to venture into some of these ventures in agriculture. Take, for instance, this recent ban on onion importation, right?
Yeah.
So, do we have the capacity to, let's say, cover for a month's sustainability on onion, looking at how onion is stored and whatnot? So I think there's need for that aspect to be looked into if we are to be viable in agriculture.
That's a very important contribution. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, so we do have a directive very recently that talks about the banning of onion, for example. And one of the contributors here makes an important point, which is to say, do we have the capacity as a country for warehousing, for storage of this onion to ensure that it doesn't go bad and supply adequately the Zambian market? So this is an important contribution. And the other thing that is raised here is the issue of access to finance. So one of the things that the Economic Recovery Program does point out is shifting resources to drivers of agricultural growth, and this is a smallholder. So finance is an issue that has been put on the agenda in the Economic Recovery Program. How this materializes or how this comes to play in practice is something that we all are looking forward to. However, the directive is essentially meant also to encourage local producers to be able to engage in activities without the undue burden of competition from more productive and perhaps cheaper sources outside of the country. So this presents itself as an opportunity for the country to structure the productive capacity and become self-sustaining and competitive and compete at the regional level. So that is an important contribution, and the issue of finance is something that has been pointed out. So we need more systems and mechanisms that then can trace how the agricultural sector can profit from a range of finance, from not just from the government, from different players as well. We need to figure out how we can come up with mutually beneficial relationships between credit providers as well as farmers of different sizes. So if it's smallholder farmers, we're talking about coming up with a way in which smallholder farmers can be organized, aggregated, and provide some kind of assurance that risk is mitigated, because most banks, for example, would avoid smallholder farmers because of the issue of risk. So how do you minimize this risk? That becomes an essential aspect in the conversation. So please do call. I can see lots of calls are dropping. I think there's a conflict, but keep trying. It's a very busy line, and we're receiving a lot of calls. Remember to turn off your TV, reduce the volume, visit the Facebook page, Ask Muvi, and participate in this very important conversation. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, welcome. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Wondo Chisanga.
Yes, Bondo Chisanga.
I just wanted to make a contribution to the question at hand. I feel like one of the problems that we're facing in the agriculture sector is the lack of access for small-scale farmers to financial resources. Of course, we have the Food Reserve Agency present in crop marketing, but the impact is minimal because there's little to no other services being offered as far as financial resources are concerned, as well as also we do not have enough credit information to small-scale farmers. So they're just doing things on their own, and it's really not working out. So I think if we could improve on that, that would go a long way.
Thank you very much. That's another important contribution. Not just the fact that they lack access to finance, but they also do not have the requisite information to point to them exactly where this finance is and how to access it. So smallholders again remain the critical agents through which agricultural transformation in Zambia is possible, the agents through which we might obviously sustain our food security position and ensure that we become competitive at a regional level. Are there any contributions also in terms of linkages between agriculture and the manufacturing sector? Because I see this as a potential driver for more sustained and an integrated structural production that Zambia has aspired to since independence. So what are some of the contributions, what are some of the ways you think the interaction between the agricultural sector and the manufacturing sector would be crucial or critical for Zambia's growth path as it takes advantage of the economic recovery? So the other thing that we obviously observe is that the economic recovery comes with dividends for commodity-dependent developing countries. So we expect copper prices to rise. Gold prices are also expected to rise. We also expect prices of oil as well to go up. So how does the Zambian economy insulate itself, or how does it take advantage of the rising copper prices in terms of production responding at a very fast rate to rising prices and ensuring that sufficient dividends are stored within Zambia in order to support fiscal linkages into other sectors that will be growth poles for the country? So there are all these benefits that will come with a global economic recovery, such as a rise in commodity prices, and Zambia being commodity dependent in copper might benefit from this resuscitation of the global economy. So how do we position ourselves to take advantage of this opportunity to grow our foreign exchange reserves, to support the kwacha, to support our domestic prices, but more importantly, to be able to allocate resources to productive sectors that can drive growth, that can maximize employment and insulate the Zambian economy from not just competition, but from the vagaries of the external sector? So again, remember to reduce your volume. We are getting a call. Hello? Hello? Sorry, that just dropped. So we obviously remember to reduce your volume or turn off your TV. The program is live on Facebook page. You are welcome to make a contribution, and I think this is a conversation that affects pretty much everyone, because we can see rising prices, the shrinkage of the agricultural sector, and its contribution to GDP, and that is affecting prices. So the inflation rate has gone up, driven mainly by rising food prices. So how do we position the agricultural sector to ensure that it contributes more effectively to national development, as well as supporting living standards of even the most vulnerable sections of Zambian society? So agricultural sector itself cannot be driven in a vacuum. You need the manufacturing sector to rise as well. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening.
Yes, please, sir.
Yes, I think I'm following the program on Facebook.
Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Kumar Stari. So I think from what I'm getting so far, I think the question is how the mining sector can support the economic recovery of Zambia. I think looking at how our economy has collapsed for now and how we can resuscitate it. Well, I'm thinking, I think line is critical. All we need to do is just to come up with, of course, mechanisms to ensure that at least 50% of shares in every gold venture that we can come up with is owned by the Zambian government through the ZAMBIA or the Industrial Development Corporation. Then, of course, with partnership with the private sector as well, in the same mining sector, I think it's crucial as well. The idea is to make sure that at least we begin to move away from copper into gold, with the benefit of us having at least 50% in each and every gold venture, so that at least what we produce in terms of monetary forms, of course, remain and cushion to the economy. That's what I was thinking.
That's a very important contribution. Thank you very much for that. So this is also to take advantage of the recovery of the global economy, and we know that gold prices have been flat over the past few years, and they've only risen towards the end of last year. And the focus of the International Monetary Fund is that gold prices are expected to rise even further. So the contribution to take advantage of the gold deposits in Zambia and to ensure 50% stake will go a long way in ensuring that the country can have the requisite foreign exchange from the gold ventures, and also ensuring that these resources are kept at home to support national development. All right, so we have another contribution. Welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pollen. My name is Brian Mulenga. I feel we're still too dependent on copper to earn the necessary foreign exchange to buy the things that we need to drive our economy. And I also feel there's a general lack of value addition across the board in whatever we do. Basically, we're processing raw materials and we're not doing much about it. So we grow maize, but we don't make cornflakes. We don't make juices from our fruits. Even in our tourism industry, it's like almost all the inputs that go into our tourism industry are all imported. Like on the value chain, where when every let me give one quarter of things produced in this country, whether goods or services, it looks like a great proportion is imported, and even then, the value added is minimal. I think we're not doing enough to encourage innovative thinking and value addition.
Okay,
So that's all I can say.
Okay, just to take you up on this point, what are some of the, when you say we're not doing enough, what are some of the things that you think could be put in place to say we're doing something in terms of value addition to agricultural produce that we can then also export? What are some of the things that you think should be done, in your view?
The thing that should be done. Well, I know we have a lot of free trade. We're basically, we're in two free trade agreements. That's COMESA and SADC.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we seem to have countries who are higher up, who are more sophisticated and do a lot of manufacturing or light engineering or that kind of thing. That's South Africa to the south. Even Zimbabwe, despite its economy having crashed, in a way they're more skilled and they've got a more developed economy. For me, I think we need to rethink the free trade.
Okay.
Yes, we really need to rethink the free trade. I'm not calling for complete autarky or whatever, but I'm saying we may need to go back to a bit of import substitution, maybe bite the bullet and have higher costs so that we learn how to manufacture things again and we learn how to be a bit more self-sufficient.
That's
and
right.
then maybe lift these barriers
All right, thank you very much. That's another important contribution, and this contribution touches upon the issue of value addition to our production processes, just from agriculture itself. Where are we not making juices? Where are we not making cornflakes? So I have another caller here. Yes, please, you're welcome. Your contribution, please.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening,
This
thank
is Capacities.
Yes.
And I just wanted to comment on something that you mentioned. You're talking about how, we can actually improve our economy by, boosting entrepreneurship in this country. I'd just like to add a comment on the manufacturing industry. I have noticed that in Zambia, we don't really have a problem with maybe agriculture or mining, but what are we doing in our manufacturing industry? Take, for example, we grow maize every year. And when have we ever seen a brand of, for example, cornflakes, a Zambian brand for cornflakes, or a Zambian brand for locally produced food? We do have a few here there, but you find that some of them, they are even owned by foreigners. But I feel like our leaders, they need to come in and encourage the manufacturing industry, where we have not just small-scale manufacturing, but manufacturing at a large scale and in various aspects. We can have design, we can have even the food industry, like I mentioned. I remember some years ago, one of my lecturers in school once mentioned something to say quite embarrassing, that we'd have to import things as simple as toothpicks. But where have we been these past years? We had Mulumbushi Textiles. I don't know how far it has gone with trying to revamp it. And so I just feel something else that can help boost our economy is investing in manufacturing. Those people who are in business, entrepreneurs, they need to be supported largely. I think that's my submission. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That's another important contribution which highlights some of the linkages that are required between manufacturing and agriculture. So these are some of the nuances that the government could take advantage of in terms of what could be done, first to support the agricultural sector, and secondly to ensure the agricultural sector. So we have a call here. Thank you very much. Welcome. Good evening, thank you.
Mr. Timbo, I'm calling from Germany.
Oh, thank you.
My contribution is basically on the mining sector.
Okay.
We have a lot of resources in Zambia, but the most important thing, which the government should understand, is the mineral life and also the processing cost benefit analysis, which is supposed to go to the public. So a lot of talk is happening, but the most important thing is bringing in the investors to put the business to run it. So sometimes it's not about 51%. So the most important thing is how do we make sure that the business are running and we are able to employ our local people. Those are the most important things we have to do. So for the gold, the recovery is cheaper as compared to copper production. So I would encourage local business input and local financing and investment. So we should reduce also getting a lot of loans from other countries, so that we can actually have the dollars and the euro which we need to build the country. So that was just a piece of contribution right now. Otherwise, we seem to be going in the right direction, but it will need a lot of government will and also public and private partnership working together.
Thank you very much, sir. That's a very, very important contribution there, which highlights some of the complexities of mining activity, especially in gold mining, and the fact that we do need some competences within the sector itself to be able to make it profitable.
Just before I go, also the biggest problem our country has, it has got no geological report which can audit how much we have in terms of mineral value. For example, manganese has got a lot of industrial applications. I've done a lot of regime on minerals so that we can have the reflective mineral tax, which will be a representation of our natural resources. That is the most important thing. Otherwise, we must show all the ideas which we have about the 51% because we have lost a lot of money from the time we got independence. Every year, over $5 billion in mineral value of Zambian resources is lost to Europe, and that should come to a stop. Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much for that important contribution. So the contribution, I think, if I just sum it up, points out the fact that we need to take advantage of the various minerals that we have, optimize their use, and ensure that adequate fiscal policies are put in place. Good evening. Thank you for your call. Hello? Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, I want to make a contribution on how we can create some employment and improve the economy of our country. Talking about the transport sector that is in Kenya, we are not going to make it if we allow the inflow of Canada to the country. The thing that we are supposed to do is to ban the inflow of Canada, and then we are going to empower those people that are farming cotton, and also we have people that will be dealing in retail shops, of course. I mean, as long as we will allow the inflow of Canada and the way we are receiving it in deep quantity, then dealing in transport sector will be just a green point. And then getting back to agriculture, although we are clear that if the government can empower the transport with farming equipment, for example, tractors, and then they give them also plows that they can be hiring those equipment to the communities around them, like the district. That also can change the minds of the citizens and then go to the farming. Because we have more money in the poor and what we are even trying to push to improve the economy of Zambia. That's what I thought I can contribute. Thank you.
No, thank you very much for that important contribution. This calls upon rethinking the way things are done in the agricultural sector, how to empower cotton farmers, for example. Another call here. Good evening.
Hello?
Yes, please. Your contribution, sir?
Never DMC.
Yes, sir.
I just want to contribute to the program online.
Okay.
Okay. Let me reduce the volume page from it.
Okay, sir.
Okay. The only problem we have in Zambia, of course, is that I'm taxes, yeah, it's high. I'm correct. Cancel. Because we want to start up a business. Cancel. Always taxes. Someone is competing with foreigners because foreigners in the US dollars to start up a business. So this is contributing in businesses that are very business. Competing a foreigner. US dollars. Setting up this business. I know they say can't buy fire, we need this, don't have this to rise a business. So, the other thing about Zambia is what you advantage. So, what if you took advantage to succeed, what is my industry, my industry. When you get a Maroris and Pokova, Yama taxes, Yama local citizens, Yama Pines. Then Yama foreigners, Yama Pamuro. You can't compete whereby foreign about making a tax Pamuro, then one local Muno, Tabating Darama, Wingan and out your money. So therefore, whereby Zambia, the president, Yama ministers, but only keep Paris. Because I'm a
taxes here to expire. The only problem is tax. More than what you've got a shortage of cooking oil in Zambia. So, three people quite survive. If you like a shanty, cooking oil, 330 cooking oil from Tanzania and other countries. We import cooking oil from Zambia. So, to survive a shanty, so at the local industry is quite careful here to produce cooking oil. But in the making a sure we buy it. But we shall come at taxes. There are very collecting revenues, vacancies, very focused, very focused at for business. There are ways so that encourage citizens of the sector for business.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
Yes. Another issue is like, for example, I'll come back later. Let me just go through the insurance for Bulandapo.
All right, sir. Thank you very much for that important contribution. I think what the gentleman is also trying to put out from a more technical point of view is to create an enabling environment for Zambian businesses and entrepreneurs to emerge and to also support Zambians through preferential treatment. Another call here. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yes, I've come back. I had another contribution to that concerning the stock exchange in Lusaka.
Yes, sir.
The stock exchange in Lusaka has to be decentralized so that it is in the provincial centers. Because people would want to buy shares, but the challenge is that the stock exchange is only in Lusaka. I don't know if it has been centralized, but if it hasn't been centralized, I'm of the idea that it is decentralized so that Zambian can have an access to trade so that once they want to buy shares, they can go and also invest in that area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. So this has to do with decentralization of the stock exchange to be able to allow Zambians from other centers. I think we have another call here. Yes, sir. Welcome. Oh, sorry. Hello?
Hello?
Yes?
It's Wanda Chisanga.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
I wanted to add on the concept of value addition to the products that we produce, be it potatoes, livestock, chickens, whatever it is very important because, like another caller said, Zambia has been dependent on the copper for a very long time. But even there, we export a lot of copper and we realize very little revenue from that. Whereas if we exported refined copper, beneficiated copper, would be getting more revenue from that. So even from the agricultural sector, from as far as manufacturing as well, the packaging counts when it comes to selling products. All of these factors would contribute to how in the long run we would improve the agricultural sector. Marketing, all of those things would add to that.
All right. Yeah, that's an important contribution in terms of obviously what can be done in terms of value addition, not just in agriculture, but also in the mining sector, so that Zambia can benefit from the value addition activity and increase in revenue for the government. My name is Dr. Gabriel Pollen from the Center for Trade Policy and Development and University of Zambia. I head the Public Finance Desk at the Center for Trade Policy and Development. I'm a lecturer in the Department of Economics. So please feel free to engage me in this conversation. You are welcome. We are discussing the Global Economic Recovery Program and what that means for Zambia. So how can Zambia situate itself within this context to take advantage of the opportunities that will result from this recovery? So once again, reduce your volume, turn off your TV set, or join us live on Facebook page, Ask Muvi. My name is Dr. Gabriel Pollen, Senior Researcher at the Center for Trade Policy and Development, lecturer at the University of Zambia, Department of Economics, as well as an international consultant. I've consulted widely for international organizations like the World Bank, Oxfam, as well as the Southern African Trust. I've engaged in empirical research and quantitative analysis. So please engage me in this conversation and see how we can take our country forward in terms of how it can exploit the opportunities that will come from the global economic recovery that is envisaged and forecasted by the International Monetary Fund. So important contributions have been made around what can be done in agriculture, including creating an enabling environment for Zambian entrepreneurs, giving them preferential treatment in tax policy and a range of fiscal incentives that can see the emergence of Zambian entrepreneurs who can then drive capital accumulation more broadly and growth for the Zambian economy. We have 15 minutes left before the program concludes. I'd like to encourage you to make your contributions, to make your calls. Once again, please turn off your TV sets, reduce your volume, join us live on Facebook page, Ask Muvi. So our conversation is around what Zambia can do to take advantage of the global economic recovery. 5.5%, what does this mean for developing countries like Zambia? What does this mean overall in Zambia being able to implement an effective economic recovery program that was launched by the President of the Republic of Zambia? So do call. Let me hear your contributions in terms of what could be done in the manufacturing sector, what could be done in the agricultural sector to maximize employment, to drive the agricultural sector towards food security and export orientation, so we can do away with our dependence on copper. We've been singing this song about diversification from copper, diversification away from copper, even diversification away from maize in agriculture. But how do we make this happen? So engage me in this conversation as we take this forward. So I was pointing out some of the things that were done in South Korea, for example, in the manufacturing sector, where the government interacted with local private capital to grow businesses that today we call Hyundai, Samsungs of this world. There was substantial government intervention, for example, to a very great degree, where the government provided finance as well as support in terms of growing the productive and competitive capacities of these business enterprises, to the extent that South Korea was now competing with Japan. So there are options. And what we need is, obviously, as some people have pointed out, political will that manifests and translates itself into actualization of resources that then can drive this economic recovery program. Importantly, we need to take advantage of enhancement of productive capacities. So enhancement of productive capacities essentially is about ensuring that we are able to add value, for example, to agricultural produce. So we increase agricultural use, agricultural productivity, but then we also ensure that we add value to agricultural outputs to be able to compete at the regional level, and also to reduce our dependence on imports from South Africa, for example. How do we make this happen? A range of policies have been suggested. An aggressive industrial strategy and industrial policy is required to ensure that the government interacts with different agents, entrepreneurs, for example, farmers, for example, to support both the agricultural sector and the manufacturing sector, and ensure that the intercourse between the two sectors underpins and drives structural transformation in Zambia, as this is the only way in which this economy can insulate itself from the external sector. So once again, I thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Dr. Gabriel Pollen. I hold a PhD in economics from the University of London. I teach at the University of Zambia in the Department of Economics. I am also a senior researcher for public finance at the Center for Trade Policy and Development. I'd like to invite you to participate in this very important topic around global economic recovery and what that means for Zambia. So we do have lots of missed calls here, because as I'm speaking, people are calling, and then because it's on silent, it's hard for me to see it sometimes. But then there's also a conflict. So keep trying to call, engage me in this conversation. Looking forward to hearing what your thoughts are, what your contributions are, what your clarifications and questions are. So I did really like what this other gentleman put across, which is to say there's need for preferential treatment for local entrepreneurs. But so it's also not just a matter of preferential treatment, but ensuring that you can create winners. You can ensure that Zambian entrepreneurs emerge and can operate competitively, can produce the goods that are required in this country. So a couple of empirical work has been done to show how domestic demand can lead to industrialization in a particular country. And I think the Zambian economy has reached sufficient scale to be able to support industrialization solely from domestic demand. We know how much we're importing on a monthly basis from neighboring countries as well as from the rest of the world, and what that would mean if a substantial chunk of these imports were manufactured in Zambia, the kinds of jobs that could grow in this country, and the reduction in demand for foreign exchange, then that would support the strength of our local currency, the kwacha, which has been hard hit by the coronavirus, the coronavirus pandemic, devastating effects, which led to disruption of supply chains as well as diminution of production and reduction of employment in key productive sectors. We know certain sectors are going to suffer for some time to come. The hospitality sector, for example, tourism, to be specific. But widespread use of the coronavirus vaccine presents itself as an opportunity to move towards gradually opening up economies so that we can move towards a path that can support livelihoods. What are your contributions in terms of what Zambia can do within the context of a global economic recovery? So this is an opportune time with vaccines coming on board. It's an opportune time with primary commodities rising in terms of their prices. So how do commodity-dependent developing countries such as Zambia take advantage of these sort of dynamics that are taking place at the global level? How does that then translate into economic growth for the country? But not just economic growth on paper, but economic growth that seeps to the livelihoods of the poorest of Zambians. So as I pointed out, the agricultural sector remains crucial as a key driver and pillar of growth, but also as a social protection sector, because this is where the majority of Zambians find themselves in terms of employment, and also in terms of what the agricultural sector can do for food security for the country, as well as helping address the issues of food inflation in the country. So what can we do to support the smallholder farmers who have been identified as the key drivers of growth? The Economic Recovery Program points out that there is need to ensure that there's adequate credit that goes to these smallholder farmers. Good evening. Thank you for your call. Hello. Would you mind reducing your volume, please? Sorry, we've lost our caller. So the Economic Recovery Program points out that there is need to ensure that credit is made available. Focus on productivity for smallholder farmers, as well as farm implements. So this is the only way in which we could comprehensively and holistically approach the construction manufacturing sector and bring back the manufacturing sector towards a path of growth. Thank you very much for your call. What's your contribution? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you very much. How are you? You'd like to make a contribution to our topic?
Yes, I want to contribute on your topic.
Yes, go ahead, sir, please.
Yes.
Go ahead. Hello?
Can you at least swap coal? Like,
I'm sorry, sir, I didn't get that. Would you like to repeat yourself?
I'm saying, is it connected to the interview?
Yes, sir. Everyone can hear you. I can hear you. Would you like to make a contribution to the conversation?
Okay.
I'm sorry, sir. I can't hear what you're saying.
Yes,
I'm sorry. I'll have to cut you because you're not making a contribution. Would like to hear what you have to say. Sorry about that. We have an enthusiastic gentleman who'd like to make a contribution, but he hasn't been able to say anything. I'd like to encourage you guys to tune in, give a call, and then have a conversation around what we can do for this country in terms of ideas. And what we're talking about is sharing of ideas. Good evening. Thanks for your call. Yes. Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you very much. How are you?
Fine.
Would you like to make a contribution?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, please. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about that. We lost a caller there. You're welcome to call in and give your contribution. We are discussing the global economic recovery and what that means for Zambia. My name is Dr. Gabriel Pollen from the Center of Trade Policy and Development. I head the public finance desk there. I'm a senior researcher. I'm a lecturer at the Department of Economics at the University of Zambia. Good evening. I'm fine, thank you very much, sir. How are you doing?
I'm okay.
Go ahead, please.
Yes. First of all, what is the global economic recovery?
Okay, so the International Monetary Fund is saying that the global economy is going to grow by 5.5%. So last year, the entire global economy contracted by 3.5%. So the IMF is optimistic about 2021 because of the widespread use of the coronavirus vaccines as well as targeted fiscal and monetary policies that are going toward businesses to resuscitate economies across the world. So the economy is moving towards a path of recovery. So what can Zambia do to take advantage of this recovery?
So you are trying to say that the economy is trying to recover now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Would you like to make a contribution there?
Anyway, I just want to give my contribution. If the economy is trying to recover, then let the government put that effort on the what? On the small-scale farmers.
Yes, sir. That's an important contribution.
And let the government invest more in agriculture. Are you getting me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so that people. Okay, allow me to speak in my mother tongue.
Go ahead, sir, please.
Naona ngati mutako invest mu agriculture vantu vazakako na chani vantu vazakako na vokudya muchani muziko ka maona ka so ngati vantu vana vokudya muziko vachifanga tenda vanodada vati haya nangu ikonomi nangu igwe but ngati muntu wakudya nechitaipe unhu maona ka that's a problem. So try to advise the government so that they put more effort on the agricultural sector. Okay?
That's right, sir.
Are you getting me, sir?
I am indeed getting you, loud and clear.
All right. Thank you very much. That's my contribution.
Thank you very much for that very important contribution. If you switch in or turn on to the program earlier, the Economic Recovery Program does indeed talk about resuscitation of the agricultural sector, revitalization of the sector to ensure that it underpins and drives recovery that the government envisages. But then how does it do it? To shift resources towards the key drivers of growth, which are small-scale farmers, or smallholder farmers, if you like. All right, thank you very much for tuning in. I'm afraid this is the end of the program. I'd like to once again say thank you very much for engaging me in this conversation. We could take it further. I am from the Center for Trade Policy and Development. My name is Dr. Gabriel Pollen. I'm the Senior Researcher for Public Finance. I am also a lecturer of economics at the University of Zambia. You can email me at tgpollen@gmail.com. Thank you very much for this pleasant conversation. Good evening.
From the north to the south, from the east to the west, Shonse Femi Dundu. Once if you have in a Zambia, it's time we stood together. One Zambia, one nation. Pamoktua chimfyo bulwele kwa coronavirus.
Tigwirizane tinkane panja imozi.